Hey guys, Kirk here with Premier Chiropractic. So today I want to talk about a common running injury, and that is injuries around the Achilles tendon, specifically Achilles tendinitis. The tricky part with this is there's different types of Achilles tendinitis or Achilles tendinopathy. It kind of all gets lumped into one thing. So for you, those of you that don't know, the Achilles tendon sits at the back of the heel. It runs up, and then the two muscles that attach to it are the gastrocnemius and the soleus. It's an interesting muscle or an interesting tendon because it actually is one of the only tendons that rotates. So as the gastroc and the soleus come down, they attach in and then it actually rotates 90 degrees. And that's to help with propulsion, and it helps with kind of that spring-like mechanism. So as you walk, you're not necessarily lengthening the muscles, you're lengthening the tendon. So it helps to conserve energy that way. Um, what happens with running is if we don't have capacity in the tendon, which is, we call that white tissue. Red tissue would be muscle, so tendons, ligaments would be white tissue. If we don't have the capacity in that tendon to be able to handle the load that we're going to put on it, it can lead to an inflammatory condition called tendinitis. So if we had insertional tendinitis, insertional would mean it inserts right into the bone down here, the calcaneus. And what's interesting about that condition is it actually usually results in the front part of the tendon wearing away and breaking down a little bit versus the back, because we always thought, well, it's just overuse from that stretch, and you're just overdoing it basically in the part that's stretching the most. And that's actually not what they're finding, because insertional tendinitis happens on the underside. It's usually a little different issue than just the backside stretching. So if you had insertional tendinitis, your protocol would actually be to do calf raises here instead of on like a decline to start. We would eventually get you to full range of motion, but to start here, you're actually going to get the most strain on that tendon if you're just starting from like this neutral position and then coming up into plantar flexion. So the most strain happens when you get all the way up into plantar flexion. Um, okay, second piece would be non-insertional. So that would be just a little bit up from the insertion. And that usually starts from inflammation of the sheath around the tendon. And then it leads to non-insertional tendinitis. This one, we would actually really like to strengthen everything here, but we would really like to strengthen the long digital flexors, flexor digitorum longus and brevis. Those ones are going to be important for controlling a lot of the things that can lead to that in the first place. That one's commonly for overpronators, people who tend to have a little more of a flat foot. That can lead to some Achilles non-insertional tendinitis and then tendinopathy eventually. That one isn't always inflammatory, so it tends to be a little bit of a longer process to heal. If you get it right away and you do the right things right away, you can definitely, put out the fire, get out the inflammation right away. But if you leave it and you keep running on it, then it can lead to a non-insertional tendinopathy, in which it takes about 6 months of kind of toning down your running and then strengthening specifically that tissue, which is very hard for runners to do. Not that you can't run at all, but you just have to tone that down a little bit. So the tools that we use, again, like a good starting point would be here. The Toe Pro, which is a nice little calf raise tool that we use. It activates what we were calling those kind of long flexor muscles. So if you are someone who overly pronates, doing some calf raises on here while really pressing the toes down into this, you can get some great activation there. Then we always try to get people to full range of motion, just because life, takes place in full range of motion. So once we had progressed from there, we had added some weight probably. Then we're going to get you on a decline, and then we're going to do some calf raises on there. We would do double leg, and then we would do single leg. And we typically are holding weight. You can either hold a kettlebell or you can, throw on like a weighted backpack or something like that. The one thing we do always say, like, you need to hold more weight than you think, especially if you're a runner, because the amount of like strain that's put on that tendon while running is so much more than you think. So getting like really, really heavy kettlebells, holding them, then doing like a single leg calf raise, that's the best way to like bulletproof that tendon from re-injuring again.